the buyers before would have only wine storage. These are low-cost people. They want to save. So what they do is they put a wine storage for the refrigerator. When it became solar-powered community, they now have 10 cubic feet refrigerator. They have washing machine. They have everything. They have big television sets, all generated from the sun. So that's a very good concept that we did.
So this is quite a different case study in terms of interconnection, because you weren't, you didn't have a hard time connecting to because this is an on-grid system, even if it has a storage, right? It's still on-grid. The grid becomes the backup.
It's a hybrid.
Mm.
Hybrid. So since I'm a developer, and I tried to do a historical study of how much all our buyers for the past many years that we've been developing are really using on their homes. We were able to calculate with our partner, the Belgians, on how much is really being used by each unit. So that was the basic of our concept. Maybe I can show you the savings. The savings that we get, the middle bar chart, that's the usual Meralco bill. On the left side is a chart where we started incorporating the on-grid, which is only for the daytime. So the small low-cost housing buyer would save 439 pesos per minimum, and they only pay 444 to Pag-ibig Fund. The next is the battery, and the battery they only pay with the battery they pay 550 savings. The savings 550, and they pay 1,200 with Pag-ibig Fund. The 201 is what they pay to Meralco, but my God, that 201 is already equivalent with a 1/2 horsepower aircon and all the appliances you can think of, which they have never have experienced before. So the next slide, the Pag-ibig Fund. No, the Pag-ibig Fund. First, the Pag-ibig Fund. The first one. This is the biggest gift that I got from what we were doing for the mass housing. When Pag-ibig saw the savings for low-income buyers, they become very supportive. And Pag-ibig Fund is the biggest fund for housing. They have 16 million members. And they approve now that all the developers, real estate developers, and also solar developers can now supply all the 16 million members solar, and all those who will participate in this will get a maximum 20% positive adjustment on appraisal, which means if I'm a developer and I put solar on my roof, then my house will have an increased appraisal value of 20%. So this encourage all the developers in the country to now put solar, which is a very good move. Then the next slide I'm going to show. This is the study that we made for some of our early buyers with the storage and lithium battery and the solar. We studied 3 buyers, and as you can see, this is 10 months. From the first graph will show that from no solar, they were paying 6,000, 4,000, 2,000. It dropped tremendously, and now they started making savings now. Then the second graph will show you that from 0 savings, they started making savings. But you will see on the June and July, there's rain, and they still continue to save. In spite of the fact that when the buyers started to learn how to play with the solar controls, because we have monitoring, they will see whether the sun is coming and how much sun is coming, and then how much electricity they can use when the appliances come in. They are able to put aircon now and water heater, which no low-cost housing buyer would ever dare before, because they're so scared about electric bills. So average for the 3 buyers that we monitored for the last 10 months, they were averaging about 25% for the 3. But currently we have about 200 buyers with with this, and we'll still keep on monitoring, especially the ones in the Bicol region, because the Bicol region, we have solar-powered homes there with outages. There's brownout, and yet they're the only ones that have battery. So this is very useful for study, that it's such proven that it's really working for people. If it works for the low income, it will work for the high end. Correct, Mike?
Yeah, no, this is really interesting, Emma. Just to ask, on the load behavior side, during the noontime, when the sun is at its peak, are there people, basically my question is there excess energy being produced, and how do you deal with that excess energy?
Every time we we sell to a buyer, we have a demonstration. And the demonstrations, we show that during the 10 to 3 o'clock peak, that's the time that the energy of the sun can produce about 1,000 watts maximum for the type of the solar we have for this low income. The 1,000 watts, they are now knowledgeable on how to use it, and so they start using their iron, they start using the washing machine, so it becomes a lifestyle. So they would know when to really put all the appliances.
And of course, you have battery as well.
Yes, we have battery.
So it enables you to use the excess at night.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. We'll get back to you, Emma.
Thank you.
Ruth. Phil Carbon. As I know, Phil Carbon is more on the utility scale. You've got big show except for ocean. So you've got biomass, solar, hydro, geothermal. Phil Carbon partnered with a Belgian company to form Upgrade. So could you tell us more about Upgrade?
Okay, so it's a joint venture between Phil Carbon and Upgrade Energy of Belgium, and we tweaked our business model because of the uncertainty of the feed-in tariff to go into solar, commercial industrial solar rooftop. So I think these are the low-hanging fruits in the country. The price of electricity is very high. Yeah, so I think with the interconnection issues, we also have encountered this. We have...
Upgrade is into residential and commercial.
No, just commercial industrial.
Commercial industrial, okay.
So
that is...
so 1 megawatt, size. So well, we range from like 100 kilowatt peak to 300, 500, 1 megawatt.
And these are the ones that are not under the net metering scheme?
No.
Okay.
I think we have one net metering in Cebu.
Okay.
So our experience with interconnection is like different distribution utilities have different requirements. There's no one standard, and it's very confusing. Meralco will require distribution impact study and distribution asset study if necessary. While in Cebu, there's distribution impact study, but they don't charge us. So it's almost just like telling them what we've installed.
This is with VECO.
With VECO. And then in Bukidnon, there's no DIS.
So how does Bukidnon deal with the technical feasibility?
No, they just say we don't require distribution impact study.
There's no, for a certain size or
no.
None?
No, in fact, I think we will be installing 350 kilowatt peak, whilst Meralco will require you distribution impact study for 100 kilowatt peak. Yeah.
And how about in the permitting side? How are your projects categorized in terms of permitting? Because
permitting as far as the local government units?
Local government units, ERC, national government?
Basically its own use. So the local government unit will require electrical permit for the installation, barangay clearance, basically the local LGU clearance.
So far, how is your experience with the LGU permitting?
It's different. It's a different animal altogether. It's different LGU, different behaviors, different LGU, different requirements. But yes, I guess that's what makes it interesting. But at the end of the day, what we can do actually is to get them to have a standard for all LGUs. Of course, that's impossible, right? And then all these DUs, the electric cooperatives, they should all decide that DIS for own use is not necessary.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. We'll get back to both Emma and Ruth later. Just feel free to jump in, if you have any opinions. So, Mike is almost a household name. Mike has made Solaric a household name through Facebook. You have what? Over 20,000 followers.
It's about 270,000.
Oh, okay, more.
Yeah.
So he has
yeah,
reached that 20,000 millennial mark.
Yeah, so we've been doing Facebook a lot since 2013.
And you also do trainings.
Yeah, we do trainings every month. We train people how to interconnect with solar, the safety protocols. Sometimes we even teach the LGUs how to do good solar and dangerous solar.
Shall we plug in your solar handle name? That's because it's very interesting. I followed Mike just recently, and in that platform, it's very, very informative in terms of a lot of problems that installers face. So my question, Mike, you're into residential and CNI,
Yes.
right? Your sizes vary or range from
1 panel to 10,000 panels. So
that's
yeah.
in kilowatt.
We range from 250 watts. Sometimes we do 150 kilowatt rooftops. One time we designed a 25 megawatt solar farm. So, but primarily we focus on rooftop solar.
And in your experience, what are the challenges that you've faced in interconnection standards and permitting?
Okay, I think when you design solar, there are two things you have to keep in mind. One is the electrical engineering behind it, and the other one is the political engineering behind it. When you get the net metering for your solar, the first reason why someone will get net metering is when the house overproduces power or has an excess, it is not counted as consumption, so they put in the bidirectional meter. However, you have to get the electrical permit from the local government unit, and also you have to inform the utility there's solar, and they'll most likely assess a distribution impact study fee, and that could delay the process 2 to 6 months, the whole process. So those are one of the challenges we face, that the permitting process takes.
Just like Ruth, you're mentioning the documents, that technical documents,
Yes.
The DIS and the DAS, that are required by the distribution utility.
Exactly.
And as Ruth has mentioned, these requirements varies from one region to another. We have several electric cooperatives and distribution utilities in the Philippines, and each of them. So if you're going to do business, solar rooftop in the Philippines, it's very hard to, if there are fees involved, right? Fees involved, it's very hard to determine how much the cost, and it's very hard to determine also the timeline.
Yes.
And that makes it quite hard for businesses to go into this solar rooftop business. Aside from that, Mike, could you tell us about the pricing, the rate for net metering?
Okay, for net metering, it seems to be structured on the capacity. From our experience, if it's 5 kilowatts and below, it's about 1,900 pesos you have to pay to the utility for the distribution impact study fee. And the government incentive is like this: you pay ERC 1,500 pesos, so they could give you a certificate of commerciality, plus another 2,000 to the office of the building official for that respective town or city.
This is with the LGU.
Yeah, with the LGU. So everything said, you're looking at about costs anywhere between 8 to 80,000. If you do large industrial installations, most likely the utility is going to charge you a DIS and a DAS, a distribution asset study. This doesn't include some retrofits you have to put in, like an outside service disconnect, which could complicate things. But things are a lot quicker. About 2 years ago, it was horrible. It was maybe 10 months to a year to get net metering. Now it's about 2 months average. And yeah, some samples here. So this is a sample of a net meter. This is the earlier version where they literally put 2 meters, 1 meter to record the import, 1 meter to record the export. Reason number one why we put a net meter is if we export, it won't be counted as consumption. But I think what is really holding back solar is the price they buy the exported power, which is the generation charge. My beef, why they should make the permitting process easier or easier to get net metering. You want to prevent installations that look like this. Because a lot of people, they do not want to go through the hassles of permitting, paying the utility 8 to 80,000 pesos to get the net metering. They just do guerrilla solar. So they just mount things, put it in there, and when you have guerrilla solar, sometimes you have gorillas putting it in. So we really want to avoid this stuff from happening, but you really have to make the process easier, so it becomes a no-brainer to go through the process to begin with. So this is Meralco putting in a net meter. And I think over here is the main thing holding back solar. The Renewable Energy Act stipulates 1:1. However, the utilities are buying the excess energy at blended generation charge for whatever reason why they set up, I don't know why. And also 100 kilowatt is the maximum you could put in a net metered installation, regardless of the connected load. Like I would love to put 200 or 300 kilowatts into this Toyota because that's its registered load during the day, but we are limited by law to put only 100 kilowatts. Regardless, if it's a house or a big establishment, it's 100 kilowatts of installation. So how are we making things faster? It's technology transfer. The most common barrier we find when we're doing interconnection with grid-type solar is basic ignorance. Like, people don't know that you could intertie solar with the grid, so we hold seminars every month to key decision makers, plant managers, even other utility companies. We teach them what solar is about. It's not going to burn the house down. It's just basically a smarter way of sourcing power. And we're trying to standardize the permitting process. So we worked with the local government and the national government to come up with a standardized curriculum on how to interconnect solar. So these are some of the sheets we gave to Tesla, and then it's now a required reading for the PV installers. So we work as close as we can with the government to make sure that solar is done right. And our contention is they should really remove the distribution impact study, especially if it's less than connected load. It really makes no rhyme or reason. And I think it's a redundant process. So pretty much my take.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. You know, you've touched on the standards, and we want to say that we are not averse with, you know, safety issues, technical, and any kind of regulation. It's just that we wanted to simplify and to streamline these processes to encourage business. This November, I think, because all installations abide by the Philippine Electrical Code, right? So there are safety standards there. I think they're gonna include fire safety regulations as well in that. To all three of you, how do you think can we integrate that in the current process without further complicating the procedures?
I think a close dialogue with the LGUs, especially with DLG or DPWH, on what is considered safe solar, which requirements are pertinent in the Philippines or not. The Philippine Electric Code has a habit of copying the National Electric Code from the United States word by word. In my opinion, there's some things which aren't really applicable in the Philippines, like the rooftop disconnect and the rapid shutdown. Although those are nice features, but we never have firemen entering a burning building to the roof, ever in the Philippines. The US is a different story, so There's some requirements they could do away. There's some safety requirements which I think they should be rigorously enforced, like the anti-islanding for grid type inverters, maybe the reconnection time. But mostly it's basic security on securing the panels. They have to be mindful that they have to secure the panels as strong as the roof is bolted to. So there's a lot of work to be done, especially to harmonize a settable standard, but they should really consult with the solar industry on what is practical and what is not really a practical solution.
Well, I'm speaking from experience. We do have lithium batteries for all our solar-powered homes, and speaking from the development side, if I'm a developer, I need to consider the grounding electricity. You got to go on the floor, and this is going to be very, very different from what the other local developers are doing, because if you don't do that, then it will be difficult to destroy the flooring. So from the very beginning, for our electrical plants, we do the grounding and of the cable on the flooring for the storage. Otherwise, you can have electrocution on the buyer. So I think that would be one aspect. If it's going to be solar, if the community is going to be solar, we have to include that to protect the buyers from these kinds of incidences. So that's just from what we have in the subdivisions.
I basically agree with Mark that there should be a dialogue on, what is applicable and what is not, and then, adapt those standards, right? Instead of just, copy and paste.
Ruth, do you think who among the agencies or sectors should initiate this standard? Should it come from the industry? Should it come from the government, from ERC? Right now, because nobody really knows, nobody wants to initiate any standardization. There's different point of views. There's a point of view of an installer who he feels that this would just complicate things. And another view of an installer that says, no, this is actually all right because it doesn't make things vague anymore. Now I know what to abide by, what to look for, what to write into my balance sheet or my cash flow.
I think the Department of Energy should initiate it, have a dialogue with the LGU, with the engineer.
The solar, the Renewable Act for buildings, there's a new building code now that all the commercials will have to have certain renewable features. So I think it's the way to go. The green building people working with the IFC, they will be the one to craft what it is, and they will present it to whatever. Where do we present it? To the building code also? The electricity, you're talking about electrical connections, right? So it's going to be also the building code. So these are the people that does it, and they're working with the public works. And actually, we're active there. The IFC people are very active on this.
And yeah, I actually this has also been brought up in one of our discussions, and there was one installer who said, "Oh no, so does that mean I have to go to DPWH now as an addition to my permitting requirements?" And that just scares them, right? That's why, should there be a one-stop shop, in a certain agency? Everything's there, from building code and, just...
The green building will work it for us because they're the ones that's recognized by the DPWH. So anything that we want, we work it through them. And I think there will be every 2 years, the DPWH changes the building code. So we're not late yet. So whatever input the industry has, we can work with the green building because they're the ones that work with the DPWH.
As we're discussing here, I'm opening the floor to questions, So are there any questions from our audience, or any comments, or any suggestions and recommendations? Okay.
Someone have a question?
No, please do.
You're only allowed one.
I've been on the doors of many developers because from my experience in the past, it was solar on every brand new home. For all the right reasons, including the lower interest rate the developer was going to get from the bank in order to borrow money for his multi-billion peso project. I'm getting nowhere with that, and I was going to ask.
When I made that concept, I worked with them, and I have to go all the way. Like, even if there are problems, I really have to do it. One thing that you will encounter from the developers is that they will say that it's so costly, it's such additional work, and it will turn off their buyers. The thing is, when we started doing this, we have to really show everyone that it's working. Currently, it's still, the developers still do not believe that that it's working, that it's going to be, it's more costly for them to add this solar. So, yeah, it's hard.
Did you use batteries in order to not have to deal with the utility, because you purposely did not export, that where you didn't have to? Because, for instance, the utility right now wants you to do or the last thing they gave me was, oh, go do a study and show us the high peak, and by the way, put a monitor on that for a week, right? And I guess sit there and make sure nobody steals it 24 hours a day, since it's a valuable instrument. And so to plan to put a solar on a project that's not built yet, is that why you used batteries, or instead of net meter? Why didn't you net meter your entire subdivision?
You mean net meter, just one net meter, or for every buyer?
Every unit that has solar does not have net metering in your plan because you're storing the energy. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a storage that is just enough. We computed it's just enough for each buyer. I mean, I tried to calculate for each low-cost housing development housing unit. They can use up to 4 kilowatt to 5 kilowatt hours per day. So with that, we match it with the storage and we match it with the solar solution. So there is really no export excess. But now that Mike is saying that you only pay 1,400, because before it was 20,000. Now that the buyers are just going to pay 1,400, I think I will encourage the low-cost housing developer, the low-income group, to apply for net metering. Why? Because some of our buyers, they work in the daytime, so the only thing that's open is the refrigerator. So some of the excess are, but other than that, we calculate that we put the amount of solar solutions for the daytime, which is just a small solar, so that there will be no excess. And Pag-ibig now even approved solar for socialized housing. Even for the socialized, they have already approved that. And if you put solar solutions on even the smallest houses, this is just about 500 watts of solar. The buyer can save up to 800 pesos a month for the daytime use.
Okay, so you're doing low-income homes in that example, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all those affordable homes, guaranteed everybody except Lola's gone all day except Sunday because they're working 6 days a week and the kids are at school.
Yeah.
So if you put 500 watts on the roof, 2 solar module average,
Yeah.
you're saying the refrigerator's going to guaranteed eat all that up and that it's not going to export during the day? Because isn't that the dream? You've got solar on your entire development. You've taken the advantage of that, including the marketing scheme, but you haven't spent that much because you only put enough to operate to keep the house floating during the day when everybody was at work.
Yeah.
But isn't the bad thing is what if you produce more than the refrigerator consumes and suddenly their bill goes up?
That's when the net meter. That's what I learned from Mike today, that it's 1,400. So for the daytime, we can encourage them to do a net metering. But you see, most of the socialized housing buyers, very few, maybe 5%, does not have anybody in the home. They usually have somebody in their houses. You will be surprised that they're like 6 people in a 26 square meter home. So they're all watching noontime show, TV. I would like, if I'd like to entertain you with one of some video that we got from our buyers. This is very interesting because the buyers themselves really cooperated to be videoed for the. No, it's just 1 second, 1 minute. It's just a 1 minute. There's one, just one.
Okay.
But there are all the testimonials. They are just paying 11 pesos, sometimes 100 pesos, and they're using half horsepower aircon. So it's really change of lifestyle for the low-income buyers. This is one of the.
Mabigat nga pagka, pag yung malaki ang kuryente, mabigat sa budget. Nakakahiya kaya laging napuputulan ng kuryente, nakakahiya sa kapitbahay. Dati namin bahay doon sa Jali, tumutulungan yung pag-iulan. Kaya, naano namin yung mga anak ko na kumuha ng bahay. Yun nga kasi yung anak ko din na napanood niya to sa saan ba ito napanood niya? Isinend niya sa akin ng video. Kaya namin to nagustuhan talaga yung sa solar niya. Natutuwa sila dahil hindi na kami napuputulan ng kuryente. Dati nun nararanasan na yung maputulan dahil yung mahal. Di ba? Ang laki ng kuryente. Ngayon, hindi ko nararanasan maputulan. Yung 36 years na pagtira namin doon sa Tiago, malalampasan pa namin dito sa Biabente. Dahil yan yung 4 light na yun. Huwag na kayong magtiis na napuputulan ng kuryente dahil sa laki ng bill. Dito na kayo tumira sa Imperial Homes.
So the experience they have are disconnection and then power outages. Because outside the NCR or Calabar zone, there's always brownouts. Like in Bicol, 11, 12 hours a day or 6 hours a day, there's always brownouts. So
Do you have two? One is in Batangas and
all my projects have. I have Iriga, Legazpi City, Cabanat. All my projects have solar-powered homes, and all of them are benefiting from this.
Ruth, you had a question earlier. Oh, okay. Okay. If there's no question for the time being, I have a question. There's not a new model, but there's a model that's been being explored right now. It's called the peer-to-peer solar or the community solar. Has any of you, well, of course, aside from Emma, but with Emma, it's still one house, one system.
Exploring the microgrid.
Yes.
So we have
Could
a
you tell
study.
us more about it, like a village electrification, solar electrification? What's the concept?
I was telling Mike about it, but I've been doing a study for one of my subdivisions with 1,000 units, and we have calculated, because as a developer, you have to start from step one, and the way to do it is that if you're gonna go solar, you gotta calculate the roof of your community, and the design of the entire subdivision should accommodate the capacity that you have to put in the subdivision. So we make calculations, and the basic difference is that here the buyer is not going to have their solar as part of their loan. Here it will be all of the solar developers here who are present right now, who are into doing solar installations or selling solar, can participate by, putting the solar on the roof of the developer and then putting the central storage. And that central storage will have a connection to each buyer, and the company that we have, the Easy, that's my also company for solar, will be the one selling or not selling or selling or leasing. I don't know the impact on the regulatory here, right? So it's either leasing or selling, whatever it is, to the buyer of our community. My question really from the beginning, before I would like to present this to the ministers or the secretaries of the Philippines. And the thing is, if my company who has done the pioneering of the solar low cost would like to do this kind of project for also the low cost, who will benefit? Because instead of them paying 10 pesos, they will only have 8 pesos to this utility company or the solar company that we have. Why would they say no if it's just for low cost, right? Besides, the other thing is that we're not gonna need anything from the Meralco or the utility company, because we will have to calculate only the basic usage of the community. So everything will be for just the community. So these are all my studies right now, and we have already made some computations for our first project. We have 1,000. This, by the way, the project is the first condo villa solar powered community. So we're testing 4-story buildings with solar, and we're hoping that we can get an approval for a microgrid. You think it's possible, Mike? So
Go with it.
I think we should do it. Everybody should put their thing together, and I feel that for the low cost housing, it's very easy to explain to the government that we should do it for the low income. I mean, let's do the commercial later on, but maybe for the low income. But for just the low income community, we have about 3.7 million backlog. So if we will be allowed, I mean, our hands will be full. All the solar developers in this room will be very busy if we will get the government to approve this.
Okay, and I don't think we have anybody from the regulatory, but no, just for discussion purposes, and I would appreciate your theories. For Emma's solar on top of housing, the housing project, mass housing with solar, it's like you're amortizing the whole house that just happens to have solar. That's how it is. But now, for a community solar or peer-to-peer solar, you're actually leasing, selling, renting out. There's a commercial component already. And, you know, on the DU side, they will be arguing that this is an infringement of the franchise law. So I just want to get your opinion and theories on it. Yes, please, Ruth.
Okay, I think it's very simple. It's like the Uber concept. The regulatory body also here that doesn't know how to deal with it because it's so disruptive on the way we do things. But technology took over, and so we do things differently now. So it's the same. Same with this, right? I mean, infringement of their franchise area. As explaining earlier on about the concept of PLDT, which is the telephone company here. So they have the telephone lines installed right before we had cell phones. Guess what? When we had cell phones, PLDT did not come and say, infringement of my, franchise. They can't do anything. Up to a certain point, you can try and control it, but eventually it's going to be revolutionary. It's just going to take a life of its own. And Emma, you're going to build as many of this solar, low-cost housing, and nobody can stop you. It's just the way it's going to be. This is the, the time where this is about disruptions. And I think, Mike, you agree, right?
It's happened all over the world. Like, there's some states in the U.S. where they put a stop on net metering. What happened is that those local officials were voted out of office the following administration. So, and now they have like net metering again in Nevada. Some utilities, they'll fight against it, but it really boils down on the consumer's choice. And if the consumer's choice is, I want to put panels on my roof because it is cheaper than paying grid, then so be it. It's really the hand of economics which is going to be driving decisions around, especially for something like energy. Whatever's the cheapest and best player will win.
All right then. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Okay, I mean, thank you very much. I mean, I really like the attitude of our panelists. It's build, just do it. And, you know, change is going to happen. We can't stop that. And people around us will just have to adapt to us, right? So, sure.
I'd like to take this opportunity for the industry to really be close to each other, because as you know that the Philippines before was not the call center of the world, but there's this group of women and other leaders that bonded themselves together, and then we overtook India. I'm sorry if there's an Indian person here, but we overtook India because they were so helpful to each other. They were just focusing in one goal, and I think this is the time that we should do it, because in my case, recently the company has been awarded the ASEAN Green Award during the ASEAN time, and we could start with the low-income mass housing community. There's so much to build, and if we are able to make a case as one, I think the government is going to listen to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emma. And with that inspiring comment, you know, we conclude this panel discussion. Thank you very much, Ruth, Emma, and Mike.